Well, first of all, thanks, Dave, Steve, for jumping in. It's great to see you guys. Game on. Here's my coffee. Here's your coffee. Way to go. Okay, Starbucks comes through again. All right, so what I'd like to do is open in a word of prayer here, and then I'm going to open it up so that, Blair, I can have some interaction. You tell me how I can do that. As I get started, let me go ahead and pray. Father, thank you so much for Dave and for Steve, for Capital, for the churches that have chosen to join us, and all that you've got, all that you already have done. What you have in store for those that'll join us, we're just thrilled and excited about what is next and what it is that you want to do in and through our lives, through the ministries of the churches that are on, and for the sake of the kingdom, and making a difference in a way like we never thought, never dreamed or even imagined. So thank you for what is to come. We look with anticipation. In your name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Good
morning, Blair.
So, what's that?
Good morning, Blair.
Morning.
Yeah, Blair's here. So, all right, here's what I'd like to do. So I can kind of see when folks kind of jump in, I'll go ahead and engage them. But let's go ahead and just kind of start right off the top. Let me throw this out your way. As we kind of talk about this, Dave, you have been doing, church now for a couple of years, right? Okay. We're not going to say how old you are, but church is not new. Give me the microwave of your story that has you sitting in the seat right now, so that the folks get to know who you are and what's going on.
Yeah, I pioneered Capital 28 years ago, January 1st, 1989. And we started out as a Bible study and have just slugged out everything. It's just always been trying to figure out how to win people to Christ and how to develop them and grow them. And we're still on that journey, Brad. And that's why we're doing this project with you about how the most effective way to get people in relationship with Christ and his family. So it's been a journey.
It's awesome. And so tell us about you and your bride, jumped in and you've done a variety of strategies and approaches to grow, to the church. The church now what are you running on the weekend nowadays, Dave, just to give them context?
Yeah, we're a couple thousand on the weekend.
And so what have been, as you've gotten kind of introduced to Purpose Driven, you've introduced those, the mission, vision, and values of the 5 purposes in your church in this last season. Talk a little bit about that, and then we'll kind of go to how you're kind of even coaching other churches to do the same.
Right. See, at about the 24, 25 year mark, of pioneering this church, I was wondering, have we kind of reached a bell curve, about where my leadership, my effectiveness in taking the church. And I've been familiar with Purpose Driven and the purposes, and we had implemented them to some degree in our church. But about that time, about 3+ years ago, really re-engaged with a systematic process for developing people around the 5 purposes. At that point, it was just an incredible renewal in our church. Their health, the life, the vitality, the releasing of the members, the team. Out of that, we converted our coaching network that we do into teaching other churches how to become purpose-driven. And so we've been on this journey real intensely the last 3 years about how to be more effective, helping people live out the things that we would call loving God through worship, knowing God through fellowship, growing in God through his word, serving God by serving others, and sharing Christ with the lost. That's the way we say it here. And so we've been on this journey, and we're excited about this new opportunity of leading and helping our church go deeper in those purposes.
That's phenomenal. Well, I appreciate you taking the time, because you're not new in this thing, and you've seen a lot of church come and go, and you've really locked into what is the purpose-driven paradigm as a model. Now you're actually coaching, a network of other churches seeking to try to do the same thing. Why don't you talk briefly about that?
We are training churches how to implement purpose-driven in their church. So we do an 8-month training program We do it monthly with a lot of resources and support over that. And it's not just giving information, it's really mentoring them and helping them implement a systematic class system to teach those purposes and deepen commitment. We do that locally, we do it around the country, and we're also doing it as a nationwide movement in Ghana, working with some of the largest churches, coaching over there as well. So whether it's applied to a small church, a medium-sized church, or an incredibly large church, the principles are transferable and that they can work in any size church. And we've seen some really great revitalization. For churches that have been stagnant, they've really become vitalized. It really helps a pastor have a roadmap in leading his church in transformation. For an entrepreneur or a church planter just starting out, it really gives them something to build towards. It's here's a schematic, here's a plan of how to build and develop your leadership in your church and the systematic development of your people in your church.
Mm-hmm. I'm pulling in Jim Cowart. Jim, are you out there, buddy? Can you hear me?
We are. We lost audio and had to reboot, but we're back up and see you and hear you now.
Okay. Isn't it great to be able to see our beautiful mugs? Isn't that very life-giving, Jim?
Yes.
It's
nice.
Scary. I'm so sorry. We'll apologize for that. It's early morning here.
Hi, Jim. It's Dave Minton.
Jim, so I got Jim. I want to make sure we got audio on Jim. And Jim, I'm going to engage you here in this conversation too. So, Jim, you have done the purpose-driven model at your church, from the very beginning, if I understand. Is that not true, Jim?
Yeah, we've been going 16 years, and we were able to start the church here in Georgia. And before we started, we were able to go out to Saddleback and receive some training there. So it's really a blessing to. We didn't have to undo a bunch of stuff. We chose a model and we've stuck with it, and it's still we're still happy with it. After 16 years.
That's awesome. Well, this particular conversation, for those of you that are piping in on this call or be listening kind of remotely, is really designed to talk about a brand new breakthrough that we have discovered that we have done with Dave and with half a dozen or so other churches that have been committed to the purposes. And in particular, those churches that want to not just introduce the purposes sooner to people, but also take them deeper over time. And so we've noticed over the years, kind of a scenario that it was difficult, to have more on-ramps in addition to class, that we could get people into that process sooner. When I was on staff at Saddleback and I ran the class process for 6 years for Rick, I noticed that it took about 9 months to get them to class 101. And a lot of churches have figured out how to shorten that a little bit. But the bottom line is when people come into a large church, they're in that anonymity. They sometimes don't make it to that first class. So we're seeking to try to have a strategy. I've always hoped to have one that could move people in a matter of weeks versus months into that process. And so that's in part a little of the genesis of this next step conversation strategy that we've developed these series on. So what I think I'd like to do is I'm gonna with you, Dave, I'm gonna have you walk through a little bit about, kind of what has happened at your place, tell a little of the story. And then Jim, I'll use you as well for a little Q&A and a little engagement in this thing. We got a few other folks that are joining us at 10 and that will be listening to this later. But I wanna, kind of start back your way. Dave, as you kind of saw, and we first started talking about what was doing the Next Step Conversation series, why don't you talk a little bit about your first impressions and your thought of what kind of need that might fill? And Steve Hernandez, who runs, Class 201, kind of your number 2 guy, I'd like you to engage in this a little bit as well, Steve, so that everybody listening could kind of get a behind the scenes on what was the problem and what was it that you saw that the need that this met, and then how it's rolling out, because you are already into your first series and having, kind of a great run. So I want them to hear a little bit about that. So Dave, let's start with you.
The Next Step Conversation series came out of some brainstorming that you and I had been doing, Brett, and we were talking about a unique challenge that we have at Capitol because of our military community. We have a very high turnover. We lose quite a few people every year. And so when people come to Capitol because of the military, they're not always new to Christ, but they're new to Capitol.
Right.
And part of the challenge was how quickly could we get them into relationship and get them into the DNA of who we are as a church and how we do church. And we were using the classes, but we felt like that didn't provide, it provided the information, it provided the knowledge, but it wasn't necessarily providing the kind of quickly relationship development that we wanted to.
Right.
So this idea came about kind of a grab and go type of deal where if you're new to the church but you're ready to get going, here's a tool that you can use to create friendships for yourself. And for the military community, that was a big deal because when they move to a new community, they understand building relationships quickly. So that has been one of the challenges we wanted to address, is just how do we get people in relationships, deepening those relationships as quickly as possible. And we're just into this, but we feel like we're onto something really special.
Yeah.
Because the way we're creating it, now we can also use it remotely, because we build this community with people and then they move on. But now through the conversation series, we can continue to resource them, even though they may relocate. And that's the other thing we're trying to address. How do we continue to build our relationship with members who might be challenged to get to the property physically because they've relocated? So I'll let Steve kind of talk a little bit about how that's been going. But for us, the early indicators are been really exciting for us.
Well, as before you go, Steve, one of the things that's interesting about this is that more and more churches are going to what is, multi-site or other kinds of things, because they have small groups and attenders. As you get bigger, people are traveling in farther typically. And some of those guys, they don't make it as regular. But having this information, not just physically, but also digitally online, could allow for people that are beyond a geographic, location to be able to start a group, to be able to, possibly even engage with the church, both in service, even though it's remote, as well as in giving. And as well as people that were at the church, that are loyal to the church, that have moved on, that yet haven't plugged in, or they still see your church as a missional opportunity. So having transferable, decentralized resources is kind of like what happened with me. Bill Bright shared Christ with me through the 4 spiritual laws. Though I would have loved him to have done it, it was through a tract through an ordinary guy named John Brosemley that read through the 4 laws, and at the end of it said, "Would you like to pray this prayer?" And I said, why wouldn't I want to pray a dangerous prayer like that if it could give me the possibility of an abundant life and, a relationship with God? My gosh. So that's really what this is. But this has the potential in the online expression to do some fascinating things, doesn't it, Dave?
And here's what and absolutely, Brad, and it's a great resource. It's a great way to get resources out. But what we're really liking about it, it reinforces our messaging, again, because we're so fluid with our flow of people coming in, that I'd have to be in the pulpit every week saying the same thing to everybody.
Right.
Up to date. This way, here's a grab and go packet that really helps people talk, digest, discuss our DNA, and helps them to get up to speed with who we are as a church, as an independent study. You can do it as a campaign where we're all doing it together as one way, but also they can, as a new group, as a new person comes, they can do this. And so a new group of people, which can get up to speed very quickly through this curriculum. Yeah,
it's awesome. Steve, why don't we come back your way? Your thoughts as you've been in the belly of the whale of this thing, Steve. I was joking to Dave. He's been on combination of vacation. You know how senior pastors are, Steve. He's out golfing, right? In Mexico, hanging out with his bride, on missions trips, quote, missions trips. We love you, Dave. But Steve, you've carried this in the implementation. Why don't you talk a little bit about, the need that you're seeing it's filling and how it's going?
Yeah, I think one thing I want to just clarify, you know, I don't think we didn't step into this as a class leader and a class developer because our classes were struggling. Our classes are consistent.
Yes.
Yeah, it's working. It's working.
We're there.
Really good.
But we know that we could be more effective, and we're not hitting and reaching everybody that's walking through that door.
Right.
And I think, like you said, it takes time for people to warm up. People are nervous. And so we want to address those things. We want to make sure that we create more availability to discipleship, to fellowship, you know, to connecting, all those things that we're championing, all those values that we're living out and we're teaching. You know, it just been able to think of how can we be more effective? How can we reach more people? How can we start the process? How can we start the connection with people, get them growing? And I tell you what, you know, it hasn't been really work because this is something we're really passionate about. We put in a lot of hours, we put in a lot of detail, and because we know what the end result's going to be, you know. And just in the last 2 weeks, Brett, you know, we've been able to watch our church members get excited. We launched 100 new groups.
Come on, somebody, here you go.
You know, and then Facebook, social media is just buzzing with this curriculum, with people engaging, excited, you know, and that's what we wanted. You know, that's what we're trying to do. It's like, get them connected. If we can get people connected quicker, if we can get them on the road to discipleship faster, we're gonna overcome those barriers of trying to get people to stick around, trying to get people growing and serving and maturing. And so that, again, we've just rolled this out within the last couple of weeks. We've been in the prep phase for a while, but it just went public. And this is just the first one. And like I was told, Dave, it's flying off the shelf. People are engaged. And it's not just our church people, it's new people.
Yes, sir. Yes.
You know, we can always have, you know, Sister Sally, she's going to do it all the time. Everyone's going to engage. Everyone's going to come in alignment because they're in teams or leadership. I'm talking about brand new people, people that haven't been coming to the church for 6 months or less. So that's the group that I know we could be more effective, connecting quicker, faster, and getting them engaged to the next steps, you know. And then once they get that taste, then we have all the other things we offer that they can engage deeper.
Yes.
They can go deeper as fast or as quick as they want. And
Right.
that's the biggest thing is we want to be able to give those options. People can, they transition from other cities here, from other states, and some people are ready to run and go. And so we have to be able to provide something for them to be able to just start right there on the spot.
Right.
Wait on us to get ready, wait on us to provide a class. Man, we want to be accessible, start a group, get into fellowship, get into serving, get into community, and we're watching that happen right now.
And I can't.
It's awesome, Steve.
Overemphasize that part right there, Brett, because of our turnover, we lose leadership, we lose volunteers, and so we have to replace those positions in our church, and we want to replace them with people who understand what we're trying to do.
Yeah.
It allows us to do that as a tool that they can do independently that helps them. Yes, they still go through the classes, and like Steve said, the classes are working really well for us, but we wanted them to get more than that 16 hours of training we do through class for all classes. So this gives them.
Well, what's interesting about this is that you guys are not only a healthy, purpose-driven church in terms of implementing the primary strategies, and you've been doing campaigns like, you know, clockwork. You guys have done some of your own material, but you're seeing this as a complement, as something to take it kind of to the next level of assimilation, of deeper, you know, sooner and deeper, relative to the purposes, et cetera. But though you are in a military town and you need to catch people sooner, when I was in the college ministry, it was the same thing. Those people were coming in and out. You needed to kind of replenish that thing overnight. But the fact is what we're trying to do is go to the broader piece where we're trying to reach the community for Christ. There's a lot of people out there, and you got this core people you're trying to do it. So we always need more and better leaders. We always need to move disciples to people who are making disciples or leaders. Yep. And so the question is, how do we get that process going sooner. To me, this actually, I believe, has as big of an exponential change as what I did at Saddleback when we were looking for small group leaders and we introduced the host concept. I believe this has that kind of an exponential potential to raise up and release new leaders.
Yeah.
Because the first time I put a camera on Rick Warren, it was purely to get another leader. It wasn't to deliver content on the book of James. It was to get another small group leaders. This has different but similar, but it's turning out to offer some things that I never even really thought or imagined. So it's really emerging. But for those of you that are listening and watching to this thing is this thing's getting better, you know, as time goes. So you guys have they've done so everybody's clear. We have captured footage on a trip to Capitol up in the Pacific Northwest. We captured about 20 or so testimonies, and we had those we had a series of questions that we asked on those testimonies that we now are putting a medley of stories of 2, 3, 4 people that precede each of the teaching segments taught by Dave on each of the series. So there's 4 or 5 volumes in this thing. There are 4 volumes, 4 sessions each, that we have stories from the congregation, teaching from the senior pastor, and ultimately we want to do some training by the small group, you know, or for the small group leaders. But the bottom line is you guys have launched your first one. You're doing it in an alignment strategy, kind of like a 40-day campaign, where you've taught the belong one, and the belong one, you're not grandfathering anybody. You're having everybody go through this, even though there's not a signature on the backside for renewal. Functionally, it's you belong to God, you belong to one another, you belong in community, and ultimately you belong to a spiritual family. That the Belong series is designed to be a precursor to Class 101 or take you deeper after Class 101. Why don't you talk about the alignment and why you're doing it that way, and you're flowing into the next series, which is one on service or serving, right?
Yeah. No, the reason we're having everybody align, because as people go through the curriculum, maybe it's a new believer, new to the church, as they go through it, we're also wanting to equip them to become leaders in the future to take others through it. So I've been through it. I see how it works. I see what it did for me. I could do this with others now and help them become a part of the family. So it's a way of decentralizing and empowering the newest person into our church to help other new people to get involved in our church through taking these courses together. So we're going through it as a campaign, we're growing as a campaign, but we actually want people to turn around and do what they've done with other new people through these tools. And so, yes, we're going to a place to belong right now. So we get people connected, like you said. Then we're going to go into a place to serve, because we're hitting the end of the year. We want to help people think about investing their lives and growing through serving others, through their generosity, through getting connected on a team. And so that'll be our next. And then we'll go into January as a place to grow and start the year off with a place to grow. And so the idea is we'll just keep rolling right into the next group, So some people will hopefully continue on into the next series. Others might go back and say, I'm going to go back and redo this curriculum with some new people myself. But using it as a way of decentralizing and empowering our congregation to get involved in discipling people.
Yes. What happened with me in Campus Crusade is they had me go through what was the level 1 series, and then success was not just to go to level 2. Success was you go through level 1 with another group of people. And so this guy finished this series in 9 weeks with me, and he looked at me and he said, now you go and do the same thing with some of your friends. And I go, dude, I just came to Christ in the last 9 weeks. I barely know where my Bible is, let alone try to lead a Bible study. Yep. And he said, I'll help you. Yep. Don't worry about it. I'll help you each step of the way. He was my coach. And so I said, yes, I got 8 guys. 7 of them came to Christ, and 3 of them are still in full-time Christian work to this day. That 10 weeks old in the Lord. Now, that's just how they did it in local church. Sometimes we change this and we just take the discipleship track off the, off the rails, and or the expectation to become a disciple who make disciples. This is a tool to exponentially make that happen. And it's interesting you say, we've been blessed to be a blessing, you belong to help others belong in the same way with that series. So this is a goal to be able to assimilate people that aren't just coming in the church and not just connect them, but to get them going as well, which is a whole nother topic.
One of the things we're really trying to address, Brett, is, we don't want our congregation just learning and not doing. We're always asking ourselves, how do we get people to do what we're teaching? And so we don't want classroom Christians. We want Christians who are actually learning something and doing something. So we're always asking, how can we equip them? How can we empower them? How can we give them tools? Because if you answer a few basic questions, most people will start taking risk and stepping out in faith, a little bit like your story. I think often we still want to make sure that people don't make any mistakes. We send them through so much training. By the time they've gone through so many years of training, they don't even know anybody that doesn't know Christ anymore.
Right.
Brained into the church culture that they don't really have any effectiveness. So we wanted to address having a tool that would quickly orientate people, and then they could turn around and use that same tool to orientate others.
Yeah. Well, the other thing is, Steve, I'll have you share too. We also, with this, like with all the series we do, like Jim, with you, Jim, can you hear me okay, buddy?
Yes.
We've done maybe 6, 7 series with you that you've done it as alignment campaign, your own custom in-house stuff, where we've done, video promos that help to get people to say yes to gather with their friends. With this, we do that in spades. It's kind of like a movie trailer for each of these series that plays on the weekend. But one of the advantages with this series is with these testimonies, we're taking those and playing those on the weekend as kind of a creative feature along with what is your 4-part sermon series. So it's like you're getting some other assets to recruit leaders and then some other creative on the weekend that helps complement. How is that going? Dave, you want to comment on that? Steve?
Well, that has been great because, that helps us prime the pump, right? It helps us. There's no better marketing strategy than telling the story.
Right.
That's the biggest thing that's been a compliment, because when you hear real people doing real life, telling the story about how they became part or how God has moved in their heart to help them belong, because like I taught this last weekend, and one of the basic desires of people is to feel like they're a part, to feel like they belong. And when people can share that authentically, it connects with the congregation, it connects with people, because that's where they're at. Everyone's looking for a place where I fit in, and is this church for me? And when they see those things, those teasers and those authentic stories, it breaks those barriers down for them and says, well, if that was your story, man, I certainly have a part in this place.
That's right. That's right.
I got a seat in this house, If he did that for you, man, there's hope for me. And so just taking those 3-minute clips of the variety of people, because, we just comb through our church. It's like, okay, we want diversity. We want different stories. We want real people. And it just translated real well for us on social media, in the service. People were clapping. People were like, oh my gosh. But then also the people that were in the videos were like, come to church, because they're excited because it's their story.
Yes. It's like their baptism. It's like their coming out party, right? They're
sharing it. They're, talking about it. And so I think that's the other thing was that it helped us downline a little bit faster, because people were more excited to get that out. Like, oh, I'm a part of this, It's not just actors or staff members or certain people. It's like, I'm a part of this, and look at it and come along with me. And another excitement or another,
Well, what's nice about this is you've got 16, 20 weeks of these 2-3 minute, well-produced in an I Am Second like format, video series that is just like, amazing. It provides wonderful kind of creative. And whether you do this, back to back to back over 16 weeks or so out of 52 weeks, or you do 4, on the backside of another campaign, you do the connect one or the grow one or the serve, whichever one you do, Or you do back-to-back, kind of do 8 weeks of it, which I think is kind of an ideal, because then you could start a bunch of groups and then sustain them, putting the other one back-to-back with it. 8 weeks gives great viability for a small group to sustain, as opposed to 4 or even 6 weeks. So, but to have some of these other creative elements is something that really helps. And it's not just the Dave show or the Steve show. You've got, a broader group. They become like rock stars in a church, don't they? People go, "Oh my gosh, you're the one, you're that gal or guy," right?
Yeah, it's very true. And I like what you talk about, the sustainability, because the other thing we were trying to address, Brett, is after a campaign, how are we resourcing them? And this creates a whole series of small pieces, but actually tie into a much larger piece. Because if they go through all the discussion series that we planned out, they'll have been in a group for, like you said, 16 to 20 weeks.
Right. Well, I think the interesting thing about this to me is I've been trying to figure out ways to raise up more leaders, launch more groups, connect more people, get people into and through the class process, which has been at Saddleback. When I got there were 73 groups. There are now 7,000 groups, 60, 50,000 people in groups. But class was the number one assimilation source besides midweek service. And small groups in growing churches is now the new midweek service. Even Dave, I can't wait, Dave, with you, we're talking about maybe adding worship to your edition, which is going to be a blast. So you decentralize a worship edition, which is what we lost with losing the midweek secondary, touch, whether it's Sunday night or Wednesday night or whatever. The bottom line, though, is this is a tool that could onboard people at any point in time, but could work. It could work linearly, like class goes 101, 201, 301, 401, or it could work randomly, where they could just go based off whatever felt need. Their felt need might be that they're willing to serve. They don't want to connect and share their feelings, or they want to connect. They don't want to serve yet, or they're not ready to do the belong one, which is about joining and kind of being a part of a church family. That might be their first step. But they want to, their second step is they really want to go deeper. They want to grow, or they come to the church as a Christ follower in a message. You challenge them in a point in a message, not just a message or not just a series. You say the way you're going to grow is get in the word. Yeah. The best way for you to get in the word is to not just study it, but study it together. Well, in the Grow series, those are the 4 topics. It's pray together. That's first with God and with one another. Keyword together. It's study together, study God's word. It's go together. It's kind of that we do some sort of a mission thing, that we wouldn't just kind of have it be about us. And it's ultimately about worshiping together. So the way you grow is you actually are part of a spiritual family. So this is designed to reinforce all of the core purposes and all the core values in a person's life, but it's all about conversation. It's taking the best of content and introduce it in the context of conversation. Okay, well, here's what I want to do. Any other initial comments you guys have before we open it up? I've asked a couple people on here to start launching their questions, as well as Jim. I'm going to open up to you to go ahead and fire away, and then I'm going to walk through a little bit more of a formal thing for about 10 minutes that'll give you a better idea of what on earth we're talking about, wanting to do with the churches that are watching this. So any other comments, Steve or Dave, before we open it up?
I think one of the things I appreciated in our partnership is being able to learn as a staff person from your process, from this whole journey. I've been able, as a staff person, just been able to learn practically how to do something like this, like what it should look like, and I've been able to transfer a lot of those things I've learned to watch your team, the camera teams, the Blairs, and just it's helping me as a staff person develop even more skills that I can transfer back into our local church. And I think that was probably a benefit that I got. It wasn't something that necessarily said, well, this is what we're going to do with you. It's just something that I gleaned. I just loved the way the process is and the quality of it. helped teach me to step up my game. Does that make sense?
Wow. Wow. Well, hey, this is like a nice infomercial, huh, Dave? This is great. I'm going to have to send you a check or something. I wasn't asking for that, but that's awfully nice. But like Jim is on this call. We've done, I don't know, 2-3 series with Jim, but Jim has done like 4 on his own. And now he's got the pattern. He's going to do 1 or 2, church-wide alignment campaigns a year, because that's what we typically do. We'll partner with a church to help align with the weekend teaching, series, the upcoming ones, and help you develop, church-wide campaigns and video curriculum and some really fun and creative formats so that you can connect 100% of your adults in groups. And so, Jim, on your side, why don't you just make a comment on that? That's what you guys have done. We worked with you guys for about a year, maybe a year too long, in your opinion. We overstayed our welcome, right, Jim?
Hey, Jennifer's here too. Say hey, Jen. Hi there.
Hi, Jen. Congratulations on your engagement, not to Jim, but your daughter's engagement.
Thank you so much. It's exciting.
Yeah, we could just echo what was said. One of the things you guys did, Brett, it was kind of like when you kind of pitched this model to us, our first reaction was, well, we're almost doing that, but you gave us a couple of tweaks, and we went, almost overnight from 70 groups. We just couldn't get over 100. To about 220 groups, and then the next round we got about 250, and then we ended up getting, I think the most we've had is about 350. Is that right, Jen?
We did a study on Revelation in-house and had 358, which was tremendous. Yeah.
Unbelievable. See, Revelation, man, there it is, Dave. Come on, bring a topic that it's a felt need. There you go.
Yeah, it was kind of fun. We called it, because we didn't get into a lot of the kind of the things that we don't understand, but the kind of bottom line for us on that series was we even called it Brave, and the tagline was "Be brave, Jesus wins."
That's awesome.
Great. People loved it.
I love
So
it.
we're kind of excited about this conversation because it sounds like it again, kind of like when we first started talking with you, this is a little bit of a tweak of what we're doing now that kind of fills in some of the gaps throughout the year in between big campaigns.
Yes.
Yeah, it's really designed to be a 52-week, 24/7, 4 or 5 volume series that is just grab, gather, grow, that you guys obviously know well. And they've written a book on grab, gather, and go, by the way, for anybody listening and watching. The spirit of it is any ordinary seeker, let alone Christ follower, let alone leader candidate, let alone someone who's been in a group for a long time or not, etc., or new attender or church lady or brand new, whatever. They can walk outside, grab any one of the 4 volume series that are a starter. It's a starter group. It's designed to be just add members, just plug and play. And so they just grab it, call the person that brought them, the people that they brought, a few that they've met along the way, or what is, friends, family, neighbors. You're not saying, are you a innie or an outie? Are you a church person or a non-church person? You're just saying, you're just trying to get them back into their 6 degrees of separation. You're just trying to get them to wake up the small groups that they're in with their coworkers that they have lunch with every week and say, hey, this is just kind of something I'm doing, kind of learn a little bit about how, the gifts that people have, and how I want to serve, make a difference. So young people are going to be excited about that one, how that is, or I just want to develop some relationships around, spiritual things, because right now the topic of spiritual journey is still high. It's just in other circles, not in church circles exclusively. So we see this as an assimilation machine, but as an evangelistic catalyst that is available 24/7, 52 weeks a year, online and out on the patio. Yeah, so you're dead on with that, as your assessment. What are the questions that you guys have, Jim, Jen, or other things, Steve and Dave, that have, or Eli, you're on this thing too. Feel free to go ahead and jump in. What are the other comments or questions or reflections you have? Anybody?
Well, can you I talked with you yesterday on the phone, but Jen wasn't on that, and I know for the folks that haven't had, this is the first time hearing it. This is the second time for me, so I'm still kind of putting some connect the dots together. But would you tell us a little bit more about the product? When you and I were talking yesterday, you were saying we come out to California to film, but then how do the testimonies work? say a little bit more about the product itself, if you would.
Yeah, what we're trying a variety of things, and you guys seen, our latest and greatest, up until recently here in terms of what we've done. But we kind of learned, with Rick, I learned how to kind of shoot content, and whatever topic that they might have. And then with other churches, we kind of learned how to shoot kind of simple, kind of what is the series on faith, or what is spiritual warfare, or whatever topic, revelation or whatever, where we could shoot a simple teaching. But what we learned in this day and age is you need story. You need testimony. You need to give them pictures to be able to understand more and better ways to understand it. Especially in this day and age, it can't just be taught by a middle-aged white guy. It needs to be taught and seen so that this is broader ethnicity, life stage, affinities of every kind, from single again, widowed, divorce, etc. That's why our primary emerging format is this thing called the town hall, where we get 30, 50 people in a room, and over the course of 6 weeks, everybody's voice gets heard, and you recognize that young couple is like us, struggling with finances, or that older couple that's an empty nester. They totally get, that we're in that same life stage where we got a little bit more freedom, or someone who's divorced, or etc. That's what we get. We get 20 people that we interview over a course of a day. We capture sound bites against all of the 16 session topics. And then we go ahead and take that and create a medley story that is 2-3 minutes long, that then you see 3-4 faces in front of each of the session teaching by the senior pastor or co-pastors or team. So we'll come out and set up and host a shoot like that. We'll take all that footage back. The church, the way we're having it now is the church will come out to California and we'll shoot it in studio or on location someplace out here. It allows us to do, in particular in this pilot season, to do this a little bit more cost effectively. But we're able to then take those 16 5-7-minute teaching segments that we are fully, kind of helping to script. So we're moving the ball down the road to probably 70-80%. You make some tweaks on it, add a few illustrations so that you come in and in a half day, you'll shoot all of your teaching segments. So then we have all the assets for testimonies for 4 volumes of curriculum, 16 sessions each. And we have all of the teaching segments shot in one day, back to back to back, in kind of a bulk form. Then we're able to produce what is 6 complete volumes of curriculum with teaching, testimonies, and training by the church leaders that is on board, ready to go. And we're going to add some other features to it. Like yesterday, I talked to Dave. We're going to have him do a communion so that the small groups could actually do the Lord's Supper led by Dave. Steve, Dave's looking at Steve like, we are? I didn't know we were going to do that. That's another topic. Yeah. And we're going to have him do a simple gospel message, even though the gospel message will be in the first belong series at the top, where you belong to God. Okay. And in the connect, and in each of the series, we're going to kind of have something that'll refer if you want to watch it on the sidebar. But the bottom line is, then we come back and we take and create from the shoots. We will put photos from the I Am Second kind of set, and put photos in the curriculum, and put congregational photos in the curriculum, and then also add some stock photography for some of those double wide photos, so we get super high definition, so it's kind of standardized and looks beautiful, as opposed to just all the digital shots from the congregation. And then on the back side, it's your pastor, their bio, photos on the back, etc. But it has a welcome from the pastor, just like the ones we've done with you guys, Jim and Jen, which are some of the most spectacular ones that we've done. And these guys have taken it to the tribe. They're United Methodists. They've taken it to their publisher, and actually have had 2 or 3 of the series we've done with them purchased by a publisher. Because after doing 120 video curriculum for parachurch, all the leading parachurch organizations and what are Christian publishers, we know how to produce curriculum that could be resourced to other churches. But that's how the series is. So we create a 60-page full-color magazine-style curriculum for each of these 4 volumes, and then the people could walk out with a DVD insert, shrink wrap, and if they're ready to kind of take the step to want to, start growing and go through the discipleship one, or if they want to take the one on belonging, and it's kind of a precursor to class, or it could be done on the backside of a orientation, or a pastor's luncheon, or some sort of a first step. Some of the churches that are doing this are the guys that are have followed Chris Hodges' model, with growth tracks. So they come to an initial meeting, but this could be used to get them before they get to that initial meeting, or after they go to that initial meeting, they start going to growth track. So it could be used in a variety of ways, but it's really designed to be plug and play 24/7. After we shoot the teaching, after we shoot the testimonies, we put the whole thing together, we master it. And in this case, because some of the churches are going to do it with alignment, we go ahead and we're now doing the printing and making the printing available to the churches. But in some cases, they're just going to do more onesie twosie when we're setting up to do print on demand for some of those guys. So they could just get 25 of the ones on serve, so they have it at the back table. But if they do a major church-wide campaign, they could get 2,500 and everything in between. Does that make sense, Jim?
Yeah, so it sounds like you have a lot of options. The one other kind of question that comes up, we're on the East Coast, so it'd be pretty cost prohibitive to bring out the folks to do testimonies. Can we do those here and shoot them ourselves and send them to you? Will that work?
Yeah, one of the things that's unique about this is you guys have done, you've been there, done that, had 7 rodeos. So you guys are not new. We'd be totally game to do whatever to work with you guys. Those that are on this call and in this phase, we are wanting to do something that is far more aggressive than we are traditionally doing. We want to crack the code with this, and so we are producing the curriculum and the next wave of churches in what is kind of a pilot program that we're producing, doing all the production at cost. So it's it's a fraction of what we had to charge or did charge with you guys, Jim and Jen. This is now something that what we want to do is kind of crack the code in multiple kind of venues. But you guys are PD people. You guys, use class and are reinforcing the 5 purposes. So we're kind of targeting a handful of folks that could do this together, so that 2 things could happen. One is we want to be able to develop not just the weekly video teaching and testimonies that will be on all 4 volumes for your congregation, but we will only capture testimonies with this model for about 20 people. But what we also are doing, which is new, is we want to have daily video kind of devotions or inspirations. So if you've got 16, 20 weeks of curriculum and 7 days a week, right? We need to have some number around 100 unique testimonies that people, when they go through the Belong series, that there's 4 weeks times 7 days, there's 28 faces that show up for a daily inspiration that gets sent to them when they do this series on their campus, which we're putting up a private site for that congregation so they can send out an email with a new thumbnail of the next day's inspiration. And this is what's lighting up social media and Twitter and all the different things for the churches, because people then see a new face. But what we're doing with that is we're sharing the testimonies from all the churches so that we have broad, again, ethnic diversity, unique types of stories, et cetera. So those that are in this pilot program, we're actually doing this at cost. And Jim, we could do something unique with you guys because you guys have both competency and understanding on how to do that to save even more. So yeah, we're totally game on that. Yeah, we're typically coming to your church with a small team. It's not a big production, Jim, like the ones that we've done with you. But what we're doing is we're sending somebody to produce it because we need those. We need this shot and captured in a little different way. We're not interviewing a person for 30 minutes to do one testimony for each session. We are interviewing 20 people in about a 4-hour period, and we're having them answer certain questions that gives us assets to work with to build the medley of stories later that fit with the others. Does that make sense, Jim? At least in concept?
Yeah, that sounds great.
Yeah. But we can totally work with you on that. But I think what we're wanting to do right now is to try to have it so it's not just, United Methodist voices or messages, but we focus it around the purposes, around the big rocks of what does it take to connect in community? What did it look like for you to belong in a spiritual family that started with your family of origin, where you got that because you were a military and you're away from your family, and this became your real spiritual family, or complemented your roots of your faith, or what got you into serving. And we're wanting specific messages, and all of you guys will get this because I've written about 70 curriculum around the 5 purposes. And so with Zondervan and a lot of churches, and certainly with the stuff that I did at Saddleback. But what we're wanting to do is to get the granular application of next steps in the series. For instance, in the serving one, the first session is about discovering. We want you discovering your unique God-given gifts. We start off with Jesus was the model for servanthood. So let's just be clear. It's find a need and fill it. So whose need are you going to fill today, and how are you going to fill it? That's just our call to serve, not to be served. The second session is about essentially a little mini spiritual gift test that you take, and it's a 1-page deal that's a quick pulse for you to look at what is your unique shape for ministry. How are you gifted by God? And then you take that test in the group, and then you talk about the 2 or 3 things that are there. The next week is about serving in community. And that one is designed to get you to share. Other people provide affirmation of your spiritual gifts. And then you do something to try to motivate and mobilize people to actually start serving in the life, work, and ministry of the local church. And whether it's children, youth, or whether it's something in the community, we don't want anybody left behind. We want everybody knowing their gift and serving, even in a 4-week series. And the big thing that we're doing, and this is why the serving one is so good, Dave, to do in the Thanksgiving, Christmas time, is we want every single one of these circles, every one of these groups that go through the serve series to actually do something as they serve in community. Kind of like when Jesus, when the buddies, went to the house and they lowered him, tore the roof apart and lowered him down, seeking to want to do serving opportunities together. So we're wanting specific sound bites that will help you get activity that isn't just some big macro thing about service. Does that make sense, Jim?
Yep, like it.
Yeah. Well, let me go ahead. Anybody else? I see Cindy's joined us out there. It's great to have you, Cindy. Had fun conversations with you in the past. I'm very excited about where God has kind of taken this thing. Now, Dave and Steve, as you guys kind of look at this, other comments, observations, things that you're most excited about as you kind of see this headed before I kind of wrap us here?
No, for us, Brett, we were like Jim was saying, we were trying to find that tweak between the campaigns and various things like that. And for us, we feel like we've addressed that with this. Being a purpose-driven church, we've got a lot of things in place. And this was an attempt to kind of fill some gaps.
Yes.
To address some things that we're missing. It's not a replacement. It's not, that's not what it is. It's just, it augments what we're doing. And we're really excited about how it's hitting that mark for us. And we're pretty excited about that.
Yeah. Well, Stephen, let me have you just any other final thoughts, and then I'll go ahead and wrap here.
Oh, and I think, it answers a few things. One, it's an alignment resource. It's not, we can have all these different resources and different things that we're trying to get into people's,
right.
This is an alignment to what we're already talking about. It's an alignment to the direction to get people from the crowd into the community,
That's right.
To the core. And that's really our objective, right? To get them growing and functioning in all the purposes. So it's not just some off the wall, random resource. It's intentional, it's purposeful, and it's an alignment, and it's accessible. And I think that's the biggest thing, for us anyways, that's kind of hitting the mark where we want to hit it. So.
Yeah. Well, I had a fun breakfast this morning with David Sean, kind of sharing with him a little bit about what we're doing, who's championing what is kind of the renewal of the purpose-driven network and the movement around the country, of which you guys are one of 30 or so, movement-oriented churches. You like that movement-oriented? That's a big level 5, Six Sigma purpose-driven. I love that. But you guys are, one of those that are coaching a network of churches, and a network of networks is the heart. And where this is also having a hope to be able to not just do something at your local congregation, but regional, national, and even global, with rolling into the peace plan, which just is really exciting. And the bottom line is, with where this is going, is we actually, two of the churches have asked for us to do not just a place to belong, a place to connect, a place to serve, and a place to grow, but to add one called a place to go. And in that one, we're going to do, 4 sessions on what's your spiritual story, how do you share your faith, kind of the exercise of had the before, during, and after, as well as what is local missions that you could do, what is, kind of regional, national outreach, that you could do. It's Jerusalem, Judea, Samaria, and the uttermost parts of the world. And what is it relative to peace or to global missions that you could do? Because ultimately it's going to end with that. And that was kind of fun, and talking with him about it. And then last night with Mingo, talking with Palacios, who's kind of doing the kind of the global tour of helping other churches champion what is the purposes. These guys are real excited, about this as well. But it's our heart and hope to be able to get a handful of let's say about a dozen churches that we can mix and match sermons as you do what is on the weekend, that we can mix and match testimonies so that we have it. For other churches, so that we can mix and match weekend, message, not just message stuff, but also creative pieces, song set, etc. Just everything, like the idea you were sharing yesterday, Steve, was a brand new idea to me that I was really fired up about, that you talked about, where you're assimilating people in the weekend and you're saying, hey, you're coming to maybe get into a group and to learn about doing the belong one, but then you kind of turned it and said, this is your chance to go ahead and do this yourself. Why don't you tell them about that? It's kind of a fun story.
Yeah. The thing I think people want to be in relationship. They want to get connected. And one of the things that I was discussing is, what if the friends and the people you want around you starts with the friend you are to somebody else. Mm-hmm. So one of the challenges is, using this to be an outreach. Maybe you're called to start this, instead of waiting on God to send you someone, you provide it for someone who needs it and then God will bring you those relationships that you need. Yeah.
Right. No, it's kind of fun because it's functionally you're kind of flipping the switch and saying you're coming to get in community, but here's your chance to create your own community. Why not just gather your own circle of friends with, some of the new models that we're using, which is kind of what we call the grow strategy, which is, it's just built on everybody wants to grow spiritually. Why don't you gather with some friends and just start growing? And that could be any content, any campaign, etc. And that be granular. It's 2 or more. So let's start. The only question is you and who. That's all that matters. You and who. Okay. Yeah. So we're messing around with some models on that. That'll be fun, rolling into the language of the curriculum, the scripts for the pastors, et cetera. So, but anyway, if you're on this call, you're listening to this, we would love to entertain candidating you as one of the churches in this pilot, by which we are making this available at our cost for the churches, so that we could then jumpstart this model. In the next phase, if you guys aren't there, totally fine. It's just a bit of a different model for us. But right now we're looking for those that Dave and Ryan Nunez in Palm Valley in Arizona, and Terry Brooks in San Diego are wanting to partner with, so that we could kind of share assets and resources. So to the degree that you're interested, we'll go ahead and follow up with you. But Dave, final thought, anything from your standpoint as we kind of wrap?
No, Brett, we're excited, man, and it's been an opportunity and a privilege for us to be able to work with you and your team, we're really cool.
Game on. All right, you guys. Well, thanks. This is going to be recorded. You could give it to other folks. On the website that you registered for this, there is a presentation where I kind of walk through essentially what it is we're doing and how the pilot is working. More detail on that between this and that. But thanks, you guys. And we'll have another call next next Monday at, I think, 1 o'clock, is it? Yeah, 1 o'clock with Dave and some of the other guys. And look forward to having you guys join. Jim, Jen, thanks for joining us. Cindy, Eli, great to have you guys. Shoot us a note, any other questions or comments that you have. Looking forward to what's next.
Awesome.
Blessings.
Thanks.
See you guys. Blessings.